See important safety information at the end of the video.
Targeted drug delivery is important in my mind for a variety of reasons. First off, everyone is aware of the opioid epidemic and the controversy surrounding systemic opiates. In my view, when you look at the data on risk, coupled with the data on lack of efficacy, coupled with recent data on hyperalgesia and the fact that patients are actually probably cycling in and out of a withdrawal and withdrawal suppression pattern, systemic opiates for chronic benign pain just don't seem to make much sense. But we know that they work for a short period of time after an acute episode. So what if there were a way to maintain that efficacy of opiate therapy that we know happens in the short run without expanding all the side effects and problems out? That's why targeted drug delivery, in my mind, is so key and so important now at this moment in time. Because it is a therapy that allows us to utilize well-established medications that we know have pain-relieving properties, but it allows us to avoid the issues that we have confirmed over and over again epidemiologically over the last few years in the failed experiment to try systemic opiate therapy for chronic benign pain. I believe that it has a real future in the ability to take people off of systemic opiates, providing them hope that they can continue to have pain relief and that they can continue to have functional improvement and actually reestablish the functional improvement that they once had on systemic opiates but lost very early on in the process. We now have several long-range observational studies coupled with some shorter-term observational studies that have strong evidence that suggests that low-dose intrathecal therapy is not only effective, it is able to maintain and sustain analgesia for at least 36 months and longer. This is accomplished without the side effects, without the systemic risk, and without the dose escalation issues that we're seeing under conventional intrathecal therapy. Another issue that is ongoing across the country, in some pockets of the country, are patients that are on systemic opiates and intrathecal opiates. I see this as a real problem. We know from the CDC data that systemic opiates have high risk and they have limited efficacy. So whenever you take a high-risk, limited efficacy therapy and you combine it with intrathecal therapy, which has its own risks, you are doubling risk without any evidence that you are actually improving outcomes. In fact, there's substantial evidence that you may, in fact, compound risk and worsen outcomes. That's why, in my mind, it is imperative, as you have the discussion with patients about intrathecal therapy, that you concomitantly have the discussion about taking them off of their systemic opiates. Otherwise, you are compounding risk without really improving outcome. That's why it's important that you have an honest, in-depth discussion with your patient about why it's important to move away from oral or systemic therapies as you're considering targeted drug delivery. The first and most important thing is to have an honest discussion with the patient about whether systemic therapy is really helping to begin with. And that if it's not, then saying, why don't we move away from something that isn't really working for you and towards something that we know has some evidence base as is concerned to a long-term outcome to improve your function and your pain.
Important safety information. The Synchromed 2 infusion system is approved for the long-term delivery of preservative-free morphine sulfate sterile solution and preservative-free ziconotide sterile solution directly to the fluid around the spinal cord for treatment of chronic pain. Targeted drug delivery should be considered after the patient has tried oral medications or other therapies that have failed or were associated with intolerable side effects. Implanting the system has possible risks, including infection, meningitis, spinal fluid leak, paralysis, headache, swelling, bleeding, and bruising. Pump or catheter problems can cause a patient to experience overdose or underdose and/or corrective surgery. Errors in inserting the needle into the pump refill septum during the refill procedure can result in medication being inadvertently injected into the pocket, resulting in an overdose that may be life-threatening or fatal. Drugs infused through the system may result in adverse events. Refer to appropriate drug labeling for prescribing information and detailed disclosure. Formulations not indicated in product labeling may contain neurotoxic preservatives, antimicrobials, or antioxidants, or may be incompatible with and damage the system. A prescription is required. Healthcare professionals must review the product technical manual and appropriate drug labeling prior to use for detailed disclosure. For complete safety information about Medtronic targeted drug delivery, call Medtronic at 800-328-0810 or visit Medtronic's website